Welcome back to the Red Diaries RPG podcast. I'm your host, John, and today in this episode we're going to be responding to some of the voicemails we've received. Okay, so without further ado, let's see who our first voicemail's from.
Hey John, Jason here. Enjoyed hearing you talk about the Philosopha Apocrypha. I can't pronounce it, or Principia Apocrypha. Anyway, other than the author's, willingness to borrow items from Lamentation of the Flame Princes, and then trying to do the whole cancel culture, I no longer support them. Only buy the free copy thing on his page. I'm going to use your stuff, but I'm going to shit on you. Other than that attitude, I can't argue at all with the content. I think the advice in the Apocrypha is great, and I think it's useful not only for OSR games and playing old games. I think you can apply a lot of the new games, and I think it makes for a funner, more interesting, more interactive session where your players are more involved than just looking at their sheet and saying, I roll perception, right? So, yeah, I'm a fan of the content of this. On the page where you can download this, he also lists other things like Skirple's Introduction to New Players. There's the I can't pronounce it, OD&D Musings. There's a bunch of things on there, and I think a number of those primers are probably worth looking at. There's one from Chris McDowell, a player's guide that's worth looking at. So there's all kinds of good primers out there to look at, and if you wanted to talk about those, that would be interesting to hear. Take care of yourself, and I'll talk to you soon.
That was, of course, a long-time friend of the show, Jason from Nerds RPG Variety Cast. Thanks very much, Jason. Glad you enjoyed this episode. And yet, you are absolutely right. There are a lot of different primers out there which offer various people's insights into old school gaming. I've got to admit, I mainly went for the Principia Apocrypha, or however you pronounce it, because that's one that particularly struck a chord with me at the time, and it's one of the few that I've actually printed out a copy of for sort of easier reading. So I have that to hand, which is why I went for that first. But I am hoping that I'll maybe get around to discussing some of the other sort of primers and stuff like that in future episodes. And next up, we have a call-in from Kevin at the Red Caps podcast. Take it away, Kevin.
Hey, John. You just finished listening to episode 1 of your OSR October. Congratulations for getting back on the mic. I don't think I've heard you on the mic for a while, so it was nice to hear your voice again. And also congratulations on the new website as well. That's looking very snazzy. Your definition of the OSR is not that different than mine. You and I both seem to enjoy very similar games, so I'm not surprised that's closely linked. But yeah, I just wanted to give a shout out and say thank you for jumping into the OSR October. I look forward to listening to the rest of the episodes. That's what I'm going to do as soon as I end this call in. And you'll probably hear my voice again after I listen to those ones. But yeah, welcome back to the microphone. I'm glad you were able to find some time, and I hope everything is well in your side of the world. Take care.
Thanks very much, Kevin. Very much appreciated. Glad you enjoyed the OSR October episode. And yeah, it's great to be back on the mic and recording again. My new job and various other sort of craziness has made it a bit challenging to carve out the time to actually sit down and record, as well as listen to all of the podcasts that I enjoy listening to, like your own Nerds RPG Variety Cast, Biggest Geekers, and many others that... well, probably too many to mention in this podcast. But yeah, it's got a little bit challenging recently. But I'm trying to carve out at least an hour or two on either my Saturday or my Sunday now to do a bit of podcast listening and a bit of recording. So whilst I might not be quite as productive as before when it comes to putting out new episodes, I hope to still be putting out a couple a week if I could, when and if I can manage that. And certainly the OSR October has been a big spur for that. So thanks to yourself and for others for putting me on game with that, and I hope you enjoyed the episodes I've got to put out in future about that. But I think Kevin's got a little bit more to say, so go ahead, Kevin.
Just wanted to say I just finished listening to the Name Your Session episode, and I am definitely guilty of doing the session 1, 2, 3 type naming, which is weird because I'm a big proponent of naming the game something unique, like not saying it's OSE, and naming after the world or something along those lines. So I don't know why I don't do the session, but I'm going to begin now because every point that you made there was fantastic. I really enjoy the idea of using it for foreshadowing and maybe giving even clues to things that might happen in the session name so that the players have to puzzle over that for the whole week leading up to the session. So Yeah, I'm going to start using that. I think that's a fantastic idea. And thank you for putting out the episode. Take care.
Thanks very much, Kevin. Glad you enjoyed the episode and you got something out of it. Yeah, I used to just call my session 1, session 2, and then I forget where I came across it, but I saw it mentioned in like a blog or something like that online. Putting titles to your session to, build up a bit of enthusiasm and, like you say, maybe foreshadow what's going to happen in the actual session. And it's something I've been doing more and more, particularly since I've been doing like one-shots and sort of one-shot con games and stuff like that, where you need to get a punchy title to sort of draw people in and capture the imagination. And it's something where when I started doing it more and more in cons and these one-shots, I was like, well, hey, why can't I just do this in my regular session? After all, you want people to be enthusiastic about that as well. And I mean, just to give an example, currently in the Vampire the Masquerade 5th edition sort of mini campaign that I'm running, we ended a last session with a player potentially discovering in the setting of Venice, where our game's set, a colony or a clan of vampires who have been potentially living underwater below Venice for many, many years. And the session ended with the player effectively taking hold of a big metal anchor, stepping off the boat and sinking down into the water to go and meet these strange aquatic vampires. Now, for the next session, I decided to call the session Down Among the Dead Men, Let Him Lie, which is a reference to a sea shanty, which I'm sure anyone who's played Assassin's Creed Black Flag will be familiar with. I've not played it with myself because I'm not really a big computer game person, but I do love the soundtrack and love me a sea shanty. So that foreshadows obviously the involvement of water and this subaquatic vampires, and obviously the dead men referring to the vampires themselves. So hopefully it gives the players a little bit of a tip of what's going to come up in the next session. Now, our final voicemail is from Spencer, aka Free Thrall, of the excellent Keep Off the Borderlands podcast. Take it away, Free Thrall.
Hey John, Spencer here, and I know you're a little late to the OSR October party, but you are really knocking it out of the park, especially with the Magical Industrial Revolution. That is one of my favourite books by Skirples, one of my favourite creators. Just so much information in there, but listening to you talk about it has sold it to me all over again, despite the fact that I clearly already own it. But I will be pulling that out and pouring through it once more. Just such a wealth of information in there. And also great to see you pulling out the Principia Apocrypha there. Another great and interesting resource. Just some really cool stuff from you, John, and I'm really looking forward to what you come out with next. Take care.
Thanks very much, Spencer. That's greatly appreciated. Again, glad you enjoyed the OSR October episodes. And if anyone out there is listening to this episode, most of the people who have been featured in it are also putting out OSR October episodes on their own podcasts, so I advise you to go out there and listen to those. In fact, I've just finished listening to an episode of Spencer's on Keep Off the Borderlands, where he was talking about how OSR is the book Electric Bastionlands, and that's made me want to reevaluate that book. It's one I've got on my shelves. It's maybe not my favourite book for reasons which I won't go into, but there's nothing wrong with the book. It just doesn't resonate with me particularly. But Spencer's article has made me want to reevaluate that and go back and have a look at it in perhaps a newer light. So I'm hoping to do that for an episode that I shall be recording shortly, all being well, and obviously keep an eye out for that coming up on the podcast. So all it remains for me to do is thank my wonderful callers. It's always a pleasure to get people calling in and to be able to respond to them in little sort of mini episodes like this. If you'd like to call us about previous episodes or anything to do with OSR, tabletop role-playing gaming, then you can do so in a number of different fashions, and you might be featured in a future episode like this one. So you can either leave us a voicemail message on our old Anchor account, or you can send us a voicemail using SpeakPipe, and there'll be links to how to do that in the description down below. Or you can send an email, either just a text email, or you can attach an MP3 of your recording to it, and you can send those to rddrpgpodcast@gmail.com. Again, there'll be a link in the description, and as I say, you might be featured in a future episode. So thanks again to all our wonderful callers, and to anyone listening, take care, stay safe, and whatever you're playing out there, have fun.